Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the first dawn the earth ever saw, when rivers were still whispers and mountains hadn't yet learned their names. The air was soft, trembling with the heartbeat of creation. No walls, no words, only the great hush between heaven and earth. Out of that silence light began to hum, and the sky opened like a blooming flower. Tonight, as you rest your head and let time dissolve, we will drift together into that forgotten hour, the age of the Anunnaki, when the gods walked upon dust, and the world itself was still learning to dream. Before the seas found their rhythm, and before the stars were given names, the world was nothing but breath warm, shimmering formless. The heavens hung low, pressing their face close to the newborn land. Between them, a mist of gold trembled, waiting to be shaped. From that sacred vapor, three presences emerged, gentle, immense, and ageless. Anu, whose gaze reached the highest vault of the sky, breathed order into chaos. Enlil, the restless wind, stirred the sleeping waters into waves, and Enki, wise and tender, touched the earth with thought. Together they spoke a language older than sound, each syllable forming a mountain, a river, a valley of clay. They did not rush. Time itself slowed to match their movement. The world beneath their hands was still soft, pliant, like the dreams of a child. When they pressed their palms upon it, the ground remembered, and flowers grew where their fingers lingered. No sun rose that day. The light came from within the soil, pulsing with a golden glow, as if the earth had swallowed the stars. The Anunnaki moved silently through that glow, tracing patterns only they could understand, lines that would one day become rivers, cities, and hearts. And when they paused, they listened. For in the deep quiet, something stirred, a heartbeat faint and fragile, echoing beneath the surface. "Do you hear it?" Enki whispered. "It is the pulse of what will be." The others nodded. The sound was distant, yet filled with promise. It was not divine, not entirely. It was the hum of becoming, the moment when matter dreamed of mind. Anu raised his hand, and a soft wind swept across the plain. In it floated seeds of starlight that would one day become souls. "Let the heavens remember." He said that below something begins to awaken. So the first morning came not with the blaze of fire, but with a quiet exhale. The rivers found their banks, the clouds their reflections. The sky stretched itself higher, and the earth sank deeper, as if in agreement with its maker. And from the meeting of breath and soil came color, scent, and sound, the first language of the world. The Anunnaki walked along the waters, leaving footprints that shimmered briefly before vanishing beneath the tide. They did not wish to rule what they made. They wished only to know it, to feel how fragile it was, how easily broken, yet endlessly reborn. Enlil bent to touch the wind, he commanded. It slipped through his fingers like laughter. "This will never belong to us," he murmured, "and that is its beauty." Enki smiled. "Creation does not ask for ownership," he said, "only remembrance." So they began to teach the earth the rhythm of memory, how to hold echoes within stone, how to let rivers remember their source. When they spoke, mountains rose. When they rested, forests listened. Every leaf was a word, every grain of sand a syllable of prayer. At twilight, they gathered by the edge of the great waters. The world glowed faintly around them, breathing in long, slow sighs. They gazed at what they had made not as craftsmen admiring their work, but as dreamers waking within their own dream. "It is good," Anu whispered, though no one had yet defined goodness. Enlil turned his face toward the horizon where the sea melted into the sky. "Do you think it will remember us?" Enki placed his hand upon the earth and felt its quiet warmth. "It will," he said. "Every ripple, every whisper of the wind, every heartbeat that comes after each will carry the trace of our touch." Above them the stars began to blink awake one by one. They shone not as watchers, but as witnesses. Each star a silent vow that the story of beginnings would never be forgotten. And so the gods rested. The night deepened. The wind softened its voice. The rivers slowed their movement until the whole world seemed to hold its breath. Even now, if you listen closely, you can hear that same breath within your own chest. The echo of their first creation still flowing quietly inside you. For every life, every dream, every act of love begins where the Anunnaki once stood, their hands covered in starlit dust. The earth is no longer soft beneath our feet, but somewhere deep within its heart, it still remembers. When you walk upon the soil, when you stand beneath the moon, you walk upon their memory. You live within the warmth of their forgotten dream. So as you close your eyes tonight, imagine that distant dawn. Feel the cool breath of Enlil brushing against your cheek, the still waters of Enki whispering beneath your thoughts, and the steady gaze of Anu watching over your sleep. The same hands that shaped mountains once touched the dust that became you. Rest in that thought, calm, endless, ancient. The beginning was not a noise but a sigh, and the sigh became a song, and the song became everything. And if as you drift into sleep, you wish to return to those sacred beginnings, to wander again through the golden mist, where creation first opened its eyes, then stay with us. Subscribe to Gentle Sleep Stories, and let your nights be filled with the soft echoes of worlds being born. The night that followed that first dawn lingered in silence. The world breathed slowly, as if memorizing every shimmer of light that had touched its skin. The waters had found their calm, and the wind lay still as though resting in the lap of its own creation. But above, in the golden mists beyond sight, a gentle stir began. The Anunnaki, whose work had shaped the bones of the earth, felt that their creation needed something more. A harmony, a balance, a shared rhythm to bind heaven and earth. High above the newborn world, beyond the reach of mortal air, the heavens unfolded like a vast sea of quiet fire. The stars were still young, soft, tender sparks, trembling in the breath of the universe. It was there, between starlight and silence, that the great council of the Anunnaki gathered. They came not in thunder, but in radiance that felt like music. Each step left a trail of faint light, like notes upon a celestial harp. The space between them shimmered with meaning. No words, no voices, only thought drifting and weaving like silver threads through the fabric of the cosmos. Anu, father of the sky, stood at the center. His presence was stillness itself, and yet all things moved because of it. Around him gathered the 50 great Anunnaki, each one a guardian of an element, a mystery, a pulse of creation. Enlil, the breath of the world, came as a breeze carrying the scent of new soil. Enki, lord of the deep waters, arrived wrapped in waves of turquoise light. Behind them, countless others glimmered, like constellations made flesh. Ninhursag of the earth's womb, Utu of the rising sun, Nana of the moon, and Inanna, the morning star whose light trembled with both love and war. They formed a vast circle of radiance, each brightness merging into the next, until heaven itself glowed like a living heart. For a long moment, there was only silence, the sacred silence before decision. Then Anu lifted his gaze toward the countless stars above them. "The world below has begun to breathe," he said, his voice deep as eternity. "But a breath alone is not life. It needs rhythm. It needs meaning." Enlil, restless as always, turned toward him. "The wind moves, and the seas follow," he said. "Is that not rhythm enough?" Enki smiled gently, his voice flowing like calm water. "Movement without memory is only chaos, brother. The rivers must remember their course, the skies must remember their seasons. Without remembrance, all things would rise and fall into silence again." From her seat of amber light, Ninhursag spoke. "Then we must bind heaven and earth together, not by chains, but by understanding. Let what lives below feel the warmth of what lives above. Let them be reflections of one another." Anu nodded slowly. "So be it. We will give the world a heart that beats in time with the stars." At his words, the heavens seemed to expand. The circle of gods became a wheel of fire turning slowly across the firmament. Each Anunnaki stepped forward in turn, naming a law of harmony. One named the tide, another the seasons. One gave the sun its rising path, another shaped the secret pull of the moon. From their agreement came time itself, gentle, circular, and eternal. The council did not rule through command, but through concord. Each god's light merged into the next, until heaven shone like a vast mind at peace with itself. The balance was delicate, tender as a breath on glass. Yet it was enough to set eternity in motion. Below them, the earth began to mirror their order. Rivers curved like the pathways of constellations. The mountains rose in measured grace, and the sea whispered in tides that matched the heartbeat of the moon. Even the silence between waves carried the memory of that meeting. And in that sacred balance, something beautiful stirred music. No instrument played it, no voice sang it. It was simply the sound of creation thinking. The first wind across the plain, the first drop of rain, the first sigh of dawn, all were notes in the song the gods had composed. It drifted across the horizon, wrapping the earth in calm. The Anunnaki listened. Even they who had shaped the song stood in awe of its gentleness. "It is good," said Enki softly. "Not perfect, but alive." Anu turned to him. "Perfection is the silence before sound. Life is the courage to sing after it." Inanna, her eyes bright as dawn, leaned forward. "Then, who will hear this song?" The world is wide, yet no voice has risen to answer it. Her question hung in the starlit air like a drop of dew. It was the first whisper of what would come, the thought of beings who could feel, remember, and love. But that dream was still far away, resting in the dust below, waiting for the right moment to wake. The council continued through what felt like 1,000 years, though time had not yet learned to count itself. They spoke of mountains and rivers of stars, and the secret language of seasons. They designed not only the world's form, but its soul how light should fall upon water, how thunder should follow lightning, how night should cradle day. And when all was decided, the council dissolved into the heavens, leaving only the stars as witnesses. Each star became a keeper of a vow, a silent guardian of the cosmic order. That is why even now, when we gaze at the night sky, we feel as though it watches us back, because it does. The stars remember. They have never stopped remembering. Down below on the sleeping earth, the wind awoke again. It carried with it the faint echo of the divine song. The rivers shimmered, the hills breathed, and somewhere deep within the soil, a dream took root. The first hint of humanity still unformed, still part of the whispering ground. In that moment, the gods smiled. The world had found its rhythm. The great council of the stars had given it a heart. And as night embraced the land once more, Enlil spoke softly to his brothers, "Let it rest now. Let it grow in its own time." Anu's gaze softened. "The heavens will keep their watch," he said. And they did. The stars burned quietly above, patient and kind, their light flowing down like the slowest rain. It was this starlight, warm and ancient, that would one day fall upon human eyes and make them wonder who they were and where they had come from. That wonder still lives in us. Each glance at the night sky is a memory we cannot name, a whisper from the first council that taught the earth to dream. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine those stars above you, not as distant fires, but as old friends keeping the rhythm first sung in the halls of eternity. Let their quiet light guide your breathing, steady and calm, until your own heart beats in time with theirs. And if you wish to hear more of these sacred beginning stories that drift like starlight through the mind, then stay close to the voice of rest. Subscribe to Gentle Sleep Stories, and let each night carry you deeper into the forgotten music of creation. The heavens had spoken, and their harmony settled gently upon the earth. Rivers learned to flow in rhythm. Mountains lifted their shoulders toward the stars, and even the silence between waves began to hum with quiet devotion. Yet something was missing. The song of the world, though perfect in its balance, longed for a listener, someone who could hear it, remember it, and respond with wonder. And so, as the stars kept their patient watch, the Anunnaki turned their gaze downward once more toward the clay that waited beneath their feet. The dawn was tender that day, neither bright nor dim, but veiled in a silver mist that felt like breath. Enki, the wise one of the deep waters, walked among the reeds by the edge of a great river. His reflection trembled upon the surface, mingling with the faint shimmer of starlight that still lingered after night. He knelt, scooping a handful of clay into his palm. The soil was warm, moist, and fragrant, the very heartbeat of creation. "This," he murmured, "has listened long enough. It is ready to speak." From behind him came the soft rustle of another presence. Ninhursag, mother of life, whose eyes carried both the calm of earth and the sorrow of eternity. She approached slowly, her bare feet leaving no mark upon the ground. "The world breathes," she said gently, "but it does not yet dream. Without dreamers, even the stars will forget their light." Enki turned the clay over in his hands, feeling its quiet weight. "Then let us shape something that can remember both the soil and the sky." Together, they began their work not with haste, but with reverence. They sat upon the riverbank as the first light broke through the mist. Around them the other Anunnaki gathered in silent witness. Enlil came bringing a breeze that stirred the reeds. Anu watched from above, his gaze steady and kind. Each god brought a fragment of their essence, the wind, the water, the fire, the patience of stone, and placed it within the circle. Enki pressed the clay between his palms. It yielded soft as a sigh. "This will be their body," he said, "strong enough to endure the storm, yet fragile enough to need comfort." Ninhursag reached out and traced a line across the clay. "And this," she whispered, "will be their heart, so that they may feel the ache of longing and the sweetness of love." From the gathered gods, a quiet murmur rose. It was not speech, but resonance, a deep note that vibrated through the air like the echo of the first thunder. The clay trembled in Enki's hands, as though remembering something it had never known. Now Enki said they must carry the spark of the divine not to rule, but to wonder. He called upon the blood of a god, a single drop from the being who had given up himself for creation. Mixed with clay, it turned the dull brown earth into a living hue, a color neither of dirt nor of light, but something in between, the shade of dawn just before sunrise. They shaped 14 forms, 7 men and 7 women, each one different, each one beautiful in their incompleteness. The process was slow, rhythmic, like breathing. Ninhursag sang, as she molded their faces, a song of earth's patience and the lullaby of rivers. Her voice flowed through the valley, and even the stones seemed to lean closer to hear. When at last the figures lay before them, still and waiting, Enki leaned forward and breathed upon them. His breath smelled faintly of salt and rain. One by one the clay forms shuddered. Their chests rose as if the world itself had exhaled through them. Eyes opened new, uncomprehending, filled with the reflection of the gods. For a long moment no one spoke. Even the wind paused. Then one of the new beings reached out, a trembling hand brushing against the water, watching ripples spread outward in perfect circles. The movement was small, yet within it pulsed the miracle of awareness. "They see," whispered Ninhursag, tears bright in her eyes. "They feel." Enki smiled softly. "And soon they will remember." The humans stood uncertain but unafraid. They touched the air, the soil, each other. One looked upward, squinting against the light of Anu's heavens. In that upward glance lay the seed of prayer, curiosity, and hope. The gods saw it and were silent, for they knew that within that gesture something irreversible had begun. Anu spoke finally, his voice rolling like distant thunder. "Let them live beneath the sky, and let their days be numbered, that they may cherish them." Enlil added, "Let them labor and love, suffer and learn, so that the song of the world may find its echo." And Enki, with quiet tenderness, said, "Let them never forget where they came from. The clay of earth and the light of stars." So, it was done. The Anunnaki withdrew a little, allowing their creation to stumble and grow. The humans moved across the valley, learning to speak, not with words but with laughter and touch. They discovered fire, not as a gift, but as a discovery born of wonder. They built small shelters from reeds, painted the walls with colors taken from soil and stone. And at night they would gaze upward at the stars, feeling something stir inside them, a memory they could not name. The gods watched in quiet awe. Never had they seen such fragile creatures create beauty from dust. Enlil, who had once been wary, now whispered, "They are louder than the wind, yet softer than my breath. How easily they break, and yet how they glow." Enki answered, "That is what makes them holy." As dusk fell, Ninhursag walked among the humans. She knelt beside a child who was trying to gather fireflies in her small hands. "Be gentle," the goddess said softly. "Light is meant to dance, not to be held." The child looked up and smiled, not knowing who spoke to her, but somehow understanding. When the stars appeared again, the council above returned to their places. Anu watched the flickering fires of the first human camp and whispered to the sky, "They remember us." And indeed every flicker of flame mirrored the heavens, tiny constellations born upon the earth. The song of creation found its answer at last, not in thunder or wind, but in the laughter of beings made from dust and divinity. As the night deepened, the gods withdrew beyond sight, content to listen. Humanity's first dreams began to rise into the heavens, fragile and luminous. The stars seemed to tremble in response, as though the old council of the Anunnaki were nodding in approval. And perhaps they were. Tonight, as you breathe beneath the same ancient sky, remember that your heartbeat carries their rhythm, and your breath still echoes that first divine exhale. You are not separate from the story, you are its continuation. So rest now in the gentle truth that your soul was shaped by both soil and starlight. And if you wish to wander deeper into these ancient dreams, where creation still whispers through time, let your nights be guided softly by this voice. The first laughter of humankind drifted upward like incense through the morning air. The gods listened in silence as men and women, still innocent as children, learned to build, to plant, to sing. Their songs rose from the riverbanks and echoed through the plains, soft. At first, then growing bolder with each sunrise, what began as gratitude soon became celebration. Humanity had found its voice, and in that voice was wonder, longing, and joy. Yet not every ear in heaven heard it as music. Some called it beauty, others called it noise. The world had grown busy. Days unfolded in shimmering layers of light, and the nights glowed with countless fires where humans gathered to share their stories. The air itself seemed alive with sound, the rustle of crops, the laughter of children, the rhythm of footsteps on newly hardened soil. From their dwellings among the stars, the Anunnaki watched this lively pulse of creation, each with a different gaze. Enki, ever patient, smiled as he leaned over the world like a gentle tide. He saw the songs that men and women sang while working the fields, their voices rising and falling like waves against the shore. "They have learned to weave life with sound," he said quietly. "Every note is a prayer, though they do not know it." Beside him Enlil stood with folded arms, his eyes sharp as the edge of a storm. "And what happens when they forget to whisper gratitude between their songs?" he asked. "What happens when joy becomes pride?" Enki did not answer at once. He listened. Below, the humans danced around their fires. They beat drums, carved symbols into stone, and called out to the heavens not with fear but with affection. They were not perfect, but they were alive, and that to Enki was perfection enough. But Enlil felt unease stir within him. Each sound rising from the earth pressed upon his chest like wind before thunder. To his ears the music of humankind was too loud, too eager. He feared it would drown the stillness that held the world together. They were made to serve, to remember their place, he murmured. But already they sing as if they are the masters of their own fate. Anu, hearing their words from the highest heaven, spoke softly. Balance, my sons. Without stillness, creation forgets its roots. Without song, it forgets its spirit. But Enlil's restlessness could not be soothed. He left the heavens and descended upon the winds, hovering unseen above the earth. The songs of humankind swirled around him, voices layered like rivers crossing one another. He watched them build temples of mud and fire, shaping idols from clay and stone, their hands echoing the same gestures once made by the gods. And in that mirror of creation, Enlil saw danger. He feared that if mortals could imitate divinity, they might one day forget to look upward. He sent a whisper through the clouds, a cold breath of warning. The winds shifted. Storms gathered along the horizon. Yet below, the people kept singing. Their songs became hymns of defiance, though they never meant them to be. Their hearts were too full of life to hear the warning in the wind. Enki watched his brother's growing anger with quiet sorrow. Do not mistake joy for rebellion, he said. They sing because they live. Their voices are born from the clay we shaped and the stars we breathed into them. Would you silence what we ourselves have made possible? But Enlil did not answer. The clouds thickened and rain began to fall. Not gentle rain to feed the earth, but sharp, restless drops that carried unease. Fields bent under the weight of water. Rivers swelled. The fires of celebration hissed and went out. Humanity grew silent, listening to the strange rhythm of the storm. Ninhursag, the mother of life, descended among them. She walked through the rain unseen, touching the heads of children who trembled beside their fading fires. Be still, she whispered. The sky only tests your patience. And indeed, the storm passed. The sun rose again, warm and forgiving. But something in the air had changed. The people no longer sang as before. Their voices were quieter, shaped by caution and awe. Some said the wind had ears. Others said the gods had hearts that could be hurt by too much laughter. Yet as time flowed, music returned. Humanity could not remain silent for long. The songs came back softer, wiser, touched with longing. They sang of the rivers that fed them, the stars that watched them, the gods who had given them life. Their hymns rose once more, not as shouts, but as sighs drifting upward like smoke. Enlil, watching from afar, felt his anger fade into something more complex, a mixture of fear, wonder, and regret. He could not deny that the music of humankind held power. It moved the air, calmed the beasts, and even stirred the waters of heaven. Against his will, he found himself listening. One night, when the world was quiet, he descended again, this time not as a storm, but as a breeze. He passed through a village where a mother sang her child to sleep. The melody was simple, built of only 3 notes. But in those notes, Enlil heard something he had forgotten: tenderness. It was the same softness that had lived in the world's first dawn, before fear and order had drawn their lines. He lingered by the window unseen and whispered to himself, Perhaps this too is a kind of worship. The next morning when Enki came to visit him, Enlil's voice was quieter. Their songs, he said, they are not rebellion. They are reminders. Without them even we might forget what it means to love what we created. Enki smiled gently. Then let us listen, brother. Let us remember. And so the gods did. From that day the heavens leaned a little closer to the earth. When the wind moved through trees, it carried the faint echo of divine breath mingled with human song. When thunder rolled across the plains, it was not always anger, it was sometimes applause. From then on, humanity and the gods shared a fragile harmony. The people continued to sing, though more softly, and the Anunnaki listened, their hearts caught between pride and humility. For they realized that creation had given birth not just to life, but to something rarer, the capacity to feel awe. The earth was no longer silent, and the heavens were no longer alone. Between them, the music of existence played on, rising and falling, imperfect yet eternal. And if you close your eyes tonight, you might still hear it, the mingling of rain and wind, of heartbeat and prayer, of gods and mortals remembering each other. It is the same song that began in the first dawn and has never truly ended. So, let it carry you gently into sleep. Let the rhythm of the ancient world hum softly beneath your breath. And if your dreams take you to the edge of that early riverbank, where clay once turned to life and song became prayer, listen closely, you may hear the gods listening too. The songs of humanity drifted across the plains and faded into the quiet folds of the night. The gods who once watched with suspicion now listened in silence. But not all hearts in heaven were at peace. For every melody that rose there came moments of forgetfulness below, times when gratitude was lost amid pride, when voices that once prayed began to boast. Enlil felt the tremor of that change within the wind itself. The harmony between heaven and earth had begun to tremble, and the breath of creation grew uneasy. The first sign came as a whisper, a change so subtle that only the gods heard it. The wind no longer carried the fragrance of prayers, but the dust of ambition. Fields flourished, harvests grew heavy, and humankind, tasting abundance, forgot who had sent the rain. They built higher walls, carved their names into stone, and raised towers that sought to brush the belly of heaven. From his high domain, Enlil gazed upon the earth, and sorrow stirred in his chest. They no longer sing to remember, he said softly. They sing to be heard. His voice rolled across the firmament, heavy with disappointment. And when the song of man drowns out the silence of the gods, balance falters. Enki the patient one listened to his brother's words with concern. All creation grows, he said. Children do not remain small forever. They test the edges of freedom. Enlil turned his eyes, shadowed by gathering storm. But freedom without reverence becomes noise, he said. If they forget humility, they will forget us. And in forgetting us, they will unmake what we made together. Anu from the highest sky spoke only once. Let justice walk beside mercy. Let the wind teach them, but let the water remember them. So the air grew restless. The once gentle breeze turned sharp, sweeping across the plains with the scent of warning. The crops bent not in reverence, but in fear. The rivers wide and calm began to whisper among themselves of what was coming. Enlil descended upon the clouds, his form wrapped in silver mist. "O children of dust," he called though no human could see him. "You build temples of stone, but forget the temple of the heart. You have learned to speak loudly but not to listen." His voice became thunder rolling over the valleys and mountains, shaking the foundations of human pride. The storms came soon after. Rain fell not as blessing, but as grief. Winds tore through the fields, scattering the golden grain that men had hoarded. Lightning split the horizon like a divine sigh. Yet even as the skies darkened, Enki walked among the rivers, whispering calm to the waves. "Do not destroy," he said. "Remind." His touch cooled the waters, turning wrath into warning. The floods rose, but only enough to humble, not to erase. Villages trembled, but endured. People clung to each other beneath the roar of wind, realizing how small they were beneath the endless sky. And as fear softened their hearts, the songs returned, not of triumph this time, but of plea. They sang through the rain, voices raw, trembling, pure. It was not melody, but prayer carried upward through the torrents to where the gods listened. The sound reached Enlil, cutting through his anger, like dawn through fog. The thunder slowed. The lightning dimmed. "Listen," Enki said beside him. "They remember." Enlil's voice, once fierce, as the hurricane became almost human. Their voices rise from sorrow. Sometimes sorrow is the only path to remembrance. Enki answered, "Even we learned through loss." The rain eased. The clouds began to break apart, revealing thin rivers of sunlight. Water pooled in the fields, gleaming like molten gold. Out of the mud, life began again. Children ran barefoot through the puddles, laughing at the sky that had once frightened them. Their laughter, light, innocent, unguarded, was the sound Enlil had forgotten he loved. He closed his eyes. The wind that had howled with rage now moved softly through the leaves, drying what it had drenched. The world smelled of renewal, of earth breathing again after tears. Ninhursag, the mother of life, came to stand between the brothers. "You see," she said gently, "punishment is not the same as ending. The soil breaks before it grows." Enlil bowed his head. "Then let this be enough. Let them remember that love hides within warning, and that every storm carries a seed of peace." The gods withdrew, leaving the earth in the quiet hum of recovery. Humanity emerged from their shelters, blinking into sunlight. They rebuilt their fires and shared their food freely, for hunger had taught them compassion. In the evenings they gathered once more by the riverbanks, where Enki's reflection shimmered upon the surface. They sang again, not the loud songs of pride, but the soft rhythmic hymns of gratitude. Thank you for the wind that spares, for the water that forgives. They whispered into the dusk, and though no thunder answered, they felt the air shift gently in reply. In the heavens, Enlil watched them. For the first time in many ages he smiled. Perhaps he murmured, "The silence between their songs is worship enough." Enki, standing beside him, nodded. "The silence is the truest prayer," he said. "It is the space where love listens." From that day forward, the storms became gentler. Rain returned as a blessing, not as a burden. Humanity learned to live with greater care, knowing that the sky watched not in cruelty but in concern. Each drop of rain became a word of forgiveness, each gust of wind a reminder that even anger can become mercy when touched by understanding. And though generations would pass, the story of that storm would never be forgotten. Mothers told their children how the gods had once wept for human pride, and how those tears became the rain that saved them. Fathers taught their sons to lift their faces to the sky and say, "Thank you," not out of fear but remembrance. Even now, when rain falls upon the earth, if you listen closely, you can hear the whisper beneath its rhythm, the quiet voice of the wind, and the murmur of the waters. They are not angry anymore. They are singing together softly of balance, restored. So rest tonight beneath that same eternal sky. Feel the cool breath of the wind on your face, and the distant murmur of rain beyond your window. They are ancient voices, old as time, still speaking the same message that every storm once forgiven becomes a lullaby. Close your eyes and let that lullaby carry you home to a world where wrath becomes tenderness, and the gods still remember your name. After the storm, the earth grew quiet again. The fields sparkled beneath the soft sun, and the rivers sang as they carried away the last memory of the flood. Humanity had survived, humbled but alive. The air was gentler now, as though the gods themselves had taken a deeper breath. Yet beneath that peace lingered a silent knowing creation had been spared. But not all storms were made of rain. In the heart of Enki, the wise one, a whisper of warning stirred. He sensed that the balance, though restored, remained fragile. And the whisper came not from heaven, but from within the earth itself. Night descended softly over the land, its edges kissed with silver light. The stars shimmered like watchful eyes, quiet but aware. Enki stood by the great river, its surface gliding under the moon. The world was calm, yet the water beneath his feet carried a secret tremor, a rhythm too deep for mortals to hear. He looked out across the horizon, his heart weighted by something he could not yet name. The wind brought him voices, distant murmurs of the Anunnaki speaking beyond the clouds. They spoke of reckoning, of imbalance, yet unresolved. Humanity, though forgiven, still multiplied, and with every new breath came both promise and peril. Enlil's voice, strong and cold, as the northern wind rose above the others. "They will forget again," he said. "Their gratitude fades faster than the rain. The harmony we built trembles. The world must be cleansed." Enki felt the river still. His hands clenched. "Cleansed," he whispered to the current. They would call destruction purification. He knew what the council meant. The flood they had once restrained might return not as a warning this time, but as a final silence. He could not oppose the will of heaven openly, for even mercy has its laws. Yet he loved humankind too deeply to watch them vanish. As the stars turned above him, he felt the old sorrow rise, the ache of a creator who must choose between obedience and compassion. When dawn came, he walked alone to the marshlands where tall reeds swayed in the morning light. The air smelled of salt and mud, thick with life. There, at the edge of the world, a man named Atrahasis lived, a quiet soul, humble and kind, whose hands built not towers, but shelter for those who had none. Enki had watched him often unseen, and found in him something rare, a heart that listened. The god bent low among the reeds. He could not speak to the man directly, he was forbidden. So he whispered to the wall of reeds beside Atrahasis's dwelling, letting his breath become the rustle of leaves. "Reed, wall. Reed wall," he murmured. "Hear me and remember. Tell your master what the heavens will not." The reeds quivered, as if stirred by invisible wind. Atrahasis looked up from his work, puzzled by the strange music that seemed to come from the very air. He approached and laid his hand upon the swaying stalks. The voice continued low and rhythmic, like the pulse of the earth. "O man of clay and breath," it said, "a great water is coming. The sky will open, and the deep will rise. The council has decreed it, for men have forgotten to honor the balance. But you, Atrahasis, you must remember. Build for yourself a vessel not of pride but of trust. Seal it with pitch. Gather your family and the seed of every creature that breathes. When the rain comes, do not fear. The waters that destroy will also preserve." Atrahasis trembled, for he knew no god's voice should be heard by mortal ears. Yet he felt no terror, only sorrow, like a man who hears a goodbye too soon. "Who speaks?" he asked softly. "Who shows mercy when the sky denies it?" The reeds swayed, but did not answer. Enki's whisper faded back into the breeze. Yet the message had taken root, and Atrahasis bowed his head in understanding. For many days he worked in silence. His neighbors watched with confusion as he gathered wood and shaped it by the river. Children laughed, calling him mad. The elders shook their heads. "The gods have forgiven us," they said. "Why build against the sky?" But Atrahasis did not reply. The voice in the reeds had settled in his heart like an ember. Far above, Enki watched with both pride and grief. He knew what was coming. The dark clouds already gathered beyond the horizon, heavy with divine decree. In the halls of the Anunnaki, Enlil prepared the storm. His face was resolute, though shadows crossed his eyes. "Mercy breeds forgetfulness," he told the others. "Let silence teach what words cannot." Enki could not stop the storm, but he could soften its blow. As Enlil's thunder rolled, Enki whispered to the waters once more. "When you rise," he said, "rise gently where the faithful dwell. Carry them upon your back. Do not take what still remembers." The rain began, first a drizzle, then a steady fall. It did not roar, it sighed, as if the heavens wept rather than raged. The rivers swelled, merging with the sea, until the horizon disappeared. But on the current floated the vessel of Atrahasis, sealed and steady, glowing faintly in the gloom. Inside, the man prayed. His children clung to him, and the animals lay silent, listening to the hum of the rain. Outside, the world dissolved into water and memory. The mountains bowed beneath the flood. The temples vanished. Yet amidst the endless gray, one voice remained, the whisper of Enki guiding the waves. "Do not fear," he said. "Every ending is only the deep breath before a beginning." For 7 days and 7 nights, the storm held sway. The sun was hidden, the moon drowned. Humanity, reborn in a single vessel, slept within the cradle of the flood. Enki watched, silent and sorrowful, but not hopeless. For he knew that mercy once sown cannot be drowned. At last, the winds began to calm. The rain slowed to a mist. The vessel touched upon the side of a mountain newly washed of its arrogance. Atrahasis opened the window and sunlight spilled in like gold. He stepped out into a world cleansed but alive, trembling beneath a sky that had remembered compassion. Far above, Enki turned his face from the horizon. The reeds beside the river swayed once more, carrying the faint echo of his voice. When the storm forgets its fury, he whispered, the heart remembers why it beats. And thus, the secret of the reed wall remained a hidden mercy between gods and men, passed down not through temples or kings, but through the simple act of listening. So tonight, as you lie in the hush of darkness, imagine that whisper through the reeds, the soft voice of love, defying judgment of hope, surviving the flood. It still moves through time, gentle as a lullaby, calling every soul back toward peace. Rest in that sound, and let it carry you into dreams as calm as the waters after the storm. When the secret of the reed wall faded into silence, the world held its breath. The storm Enlil had summoned had come and gone, leaving behind an ocean that stretched to every horizon. Upon its restless surface drifted a single vessel, the last cradle of humankind. Within it slept Atrahasis and his family, rocked gently by waves that no longer raged, but whispered, as though even the waters mourned what had been lost. Above them, Enki watched in quiet vigil, guarding the fragile spark of life that remained. The rain did not fall in anger anymore, it fell in rhythm, slow and endless like tears that had forgotten why they began. The sky hung low, a veil of gray woven from divine sorrow. Beneath it, the vessel of Atrahasis drifted, rising and falling, with the pulse of the world. The air smelled of salt and silence, and the sea had no beginning, no end, only motion, only memory. For 7 days and 7 nights, the waters climbed higher, swallowing the mountains, erasing the roads, washing away the noise of mankind. Cities vanished like breath on glass, their towers bending beneath the waves. The temples of kings and the palaces of pride were leveled with the huts of the humble. The wind that once carried laughter now carried only the sound of rain striking wood. A soft, persistent heartbeat, reminding the living that they still were. Inside the ark, Atrahasis sat by a small lamp, whose flame trembled with every sigh of the sea. His children slept near him, their faces pale with exhaustion, and his wife whispered prayers into the dark. He listened to the rain counting its rhythm, as though it were the measure of his days. How long? O Lord of the deep, he murmured, must the sky weep before the earth remembers joy? Though he could not see him, Enki heard. The god of waters moved invisibly through the flood, his presence wrapped in calm. He touched the currents so that they cradled the vessel instead of crushing it. To the waves he whispered, "Be patient, my brothers. This too is life renewing itself." But the other gods were restless. Enlil watched from his distant throne of storm, and his face was heavy with unease. "Even now they endure," he said to Anu. "The flood was meant to cleanse the world, yet one remains. How can the lesson be learned if mercy always shields them?" Anu's voice came like thunder muffled by distance. "The lesson is not only for them, my son, but for us as well. To destroy what we have loved is to destroy part of ourselves. Let the flood end when the world is ready to breathe again." And so the heavens waited. On the 4th night, Atrahasis dreamed. He saw a vast plain of water stretching beneath an endless sky, and upon that sky the stars began to appear one by one, as if heaven were rebuilding itself from fragments. A single voice, soft and sorrowful, spoke within him. "You are not the last child of clay. You are the bridge between what was and what will be." Endure and remember. When he awoke, the rain had slowed. The air outside was still, and the sound of dripping had become the only music left in creation. He opened the small window of the ark, and a pale shaft of light fell across his face. The smell of clean air filled his lungs, sharp, new, and wild. For the first time in what felt like eternity, he saw the faint blush of dawn breaking through the mist. He released a dove into the air, its wings trembling as it vanished into the fog. Hours passed. The children stirred in their sleep, and his wife reached for his hand. When the dove returned, it carried nothing, only exhaustion, and rested upon his shoulder. The sea was not yet ready to release them. Days passed again, each one slower than the last, each one heavier with waiting. On the seventh day, the rain ceased entirely. The clouds began to thin, and the sun appeared a pale, weary disk, but golden nonetheless. The waters no longer climbed. They began to fall. From the highest peak beneath the waves, the voice of the earth itself rose like a sigh. The soil longed to feel the touch of sky again. Rivers began to find their paths, whispering secrets to the sea. The ark drifted downward gently, as if carried by unseen hands. When the vessel came to rest upon the slope of a great mountain, Atrahasis fell to his knees. He wept not from sorrow, but from a relief too deep for words. Around him the world still shimmered with water, but it no longer threatened. It glowed. The flood that had destroyed also cleansed, and what remained was the beginning of memory. In the heavens, Enki spoke to Enlil once more. "You see," he said quietly, "the waters obeyed not destruction, but balance. Life bends, but it does not break." Enlil's gaze softened. "Perhaps I have been too eager to silence what I feared. The wind must roar to clear the air." Enki replied, "But afterward it must rest. Even storms must sleep." Enlil nodded, his pride dissolving like rain in sunlight. "Then let the earth begin anew. But this time, let it remember its fragility." As the gods withdrew, the sky cleared completely. The stars returned brighter than before, reflecting upon the still surface of the receding flood. It was as though heaven itself bent down to look at its reflection, marveling at what had survived. Atrahasis stepped onto dry ground. The air beneath his feet was damp and soft, the scent of renewal thick upon it. He lifted his eyes to the heavens and whispered a simple prayer, not for riches or protection, but for memory. "Let my children remember." He said that we were spared, not because we were strong, but because mercy saw us. His words rose like mist into the quiet sky, where they lingered and became part of the breath of creation. Enki smiled unseen. The balance had returned, fragile yet enduring. And as night came once more, Atrahasis gathered his family around the small fire they had built from driftwood. The flame danced upon their faces, soft and golden. Above them the constellations shone like promises renewed. For the first time since the flood began, there was laughter, gentle, uncertain, but real. The gods listened, and this time they did not fear the sound. It was not defiance, it was gratitude turned into song. So as you drift tonight between waking and dream, imagine that soft light reflecting upon calm waters, the world reborn, the air washed clean. The storm is over, Yet its echo remains, reminding us that even within ruin, there is mercy waiting to rise. Sleep now, and let the rhythm of those ancient waves carry you toward peace, where every ending is simply the beginning of another dawn. When the laughter of Atrahasis and his family faded into the quiet hum of the new world, a sacred stillness settled upon the earth. The waters had retreated, leaving behind valleys glistening with dew and mountains breathing steam into the dawn. For the first time, the soil was soft again beneath human feet, and the air carried the scent of rebirth. But as humanity stepped out from the shadow of the flood, the gods looked down and knew something must be spoken. A promise to bind heaven and earth once more, so that mercy and memory would never again drift apart. The morning after the waters withdrew was brighter than any Atrahasis had ever seen. The sky, once heavy with storm, now stretched endlessly above him, clear and vast, like a newly polished mirror. The world beneath it was silent, as though creation itself waited for the first heartbeat of the new age. He stood barefoot on the damp soil, feeling its pulse through the soles of his feet. It was alive, young again, tender as the skin of a newborn child. Behind him his family stirred. The children whispered, half in awe, half in fear. Around them the remains of the flood lay like scattered memories, branches tangled with seaweed, stones polished by waves, and the soft gleaming shells of creatures the ocean had left as gifts. Atrahasis raised his eyes to the heavens. The air shimmered faintly, and though he saw no form, he felt a presence. It was as though the sky itself leaned down to listen. He built an altar from the stones that the flood had carried, each one smooth and rounded, shaped by patience and pain. Upon it, he placed the first fruits of the new earth grain, still damp from the soil, and the smoke of wood that had survived the waters. When he struck the spark, the fire rose slowly, curling into a slender column of gold. Its warmth spread through the air, and for the first time since the beginning of the storm, Atrahasis smiled. Not for fear, he said quietly, but for remembrance. Far above, the gods watched. Enki stood at the edge of the heavenly sea, his eyes softened by the sight. The smoke rose toward him, carrying with it the scent of earth and gratitude. He remembers, he said, and remembrance is the first step toward peace. Enlil approached beside him, his face shadowed by humility. The storm has ended, he murmured. Yet I see in them something greater than endurance. I see devotion. Anu, whose light was the sky itself, spoke gently, his voice deep as eternity. Then let us speak, that both gods and men may remember. A covenant must be made, not written on stone, but in the rhythm of the world. So it was that the heavens lowered themselves once more to the earth. A great calm fell over the valley where Atrahasis knelt. The fire flickered, and the air thickened with the scent of rain. But this was no storm. The clouds gathered softly, folding upon themselves like wings of light. From their center came a glow that danced between gold and blue, shimmering as if the stars themselves had woven a bridge between realms. Enki's voice drifted through the mist, no longer a whisper, but a melody that filled the air like a river fills its banks. Child of clay, he said, you have endured what even mountains could not. The world was washed not to destroy, but to renew. And now, as the waters rest, so too must your heart. But remember, Atrahasis. Remember this day, for it is not an ending. It is a covenant. Atrahasis bowed low, trembling beneath the weight of divine gentleness. What would you have me do? My lord live, Enki answered. Plant love, teach. Let your children walk upon the earth as we once walked in heaven. But let them never forget the balance between pride and gratitude is the bridge between worlds. Then Enlil's voice, once so fierce, came like distant thunder softened by rain. Let the seasons mark this covenant. When the rains fall, let them feed, not drown. When the wind blows, let it remind you of breath, not fear. You will see storms again, but they shall pass, and in their passing, the earth will sing. As Enlil spoke, the clouds parted, revealing a sweep of colors arching across the sky, red, gold, violet, and green, shimmering like the reflection of a divine smile. It was the first rainbow, a promise drawn between heaven and earth. Atrahasis gasped, his heart swelling with awe. From the heavens came Anu's voice. This shall be our sign. When you see the bow of light upon the sky, remember that wrath can give birth to mercy, and mercy can preserve creation. This is the bridge of peace between gods and men. Tears filled Atrahasis's eyes. He looked upon the rainbow as one might gaze upon a revelation, his soul quieted by its beauty. Then let the world remember through me, he whispered. Let this sign be told to every child who is born of the earth, that they may know the sky still loves them. And so, as generations passed, the rainbow remained a silent vow stretched across time. Its colors whispered through storms, through laughter, through prayers carried on the wind. It became the sacred memory of a world that had died and been reborn. The Anunnaki, watching from their high places, felt the peace of the moment settle within their hearts. Enki turned to Enlil and spoke softly. Do you see, brother? The song continues. Even silence cannot end it. Enlil nodded. Perhaps the world was never meant to be perfect, he said. Perhaps it was meant to remember. Below, Atrahasis gathered his family and began to plant seeds in the moist soil. The earth accepted them gently, as if welcoming back old friends. The sun, now strong again, poured warmth over the land, and new life stirred within the fields. At night, as they rested beneath a sky free of clouds, Atrahasis looked once more at the stars. They seemed closer now, brighter, as if each one carried the breath of the gods. We are never alone, he whispered to his children. Even the silence is filled with their kindness, and the stars in their own language seem to answer softly, endlessly, like a lullaby stretching beyond the edge of dreams. So remember, when rain falls upon your window, or when light bends across the sky, in gentle colors, that the covenant still lives. It is the quiet assurance that love outlasts anger, and that every storm, no matter how fierce, ends with a promise. Close your eyes now and see the rainbow in your mind's sky. Feel its warmth, its peace, its gentle curve, linking earth and heaven. Let it cradle you tonight, as it once cradled the world itself, whispering that even after the flood, life always finds its song again. When the rainbow faded into the quiet dusk, the world felt both newborn and ancient, as though it carried the memory of every tear the heavens had ever shed. The air was soft, filled with the scent of wet soil. and the quiet breathing of a planet learning to live again. Humanity had begun its second dawn. Atrahasis and his descendants tilled the land, built homes of stone and clay, and lifted their eyes to the stars, not in fear, but in gratitude. Yet time, faithful to its rhythm, began to move forward once more. And with it the story of humankind continued, one of cities' dreams, and the return of wonder. In the beginning, the earth was bare green valleys stretched like unrolled scrolls, and rivers carved gentle songs through their courses. But the heart of man, restless and brilliant, could not remain still. From the clay that had once been their refuge, humanity began to build again. Each stone they lifted carried both memory and hope. Memory of the flood that had humbled them, and hope for a future where their work might echo the order of the heavens. Atrahasis's grandchildren settled along the rivers where life first began, at the twin currents of Tigris and Euphrates. There they built homes that breathed with the wind, round like the sun, firm like faith. The people called these places by many names, Eridu, Uruk, Nippur, but in every tongue their meaning was the same: sanctuary. At twilight, when the day's heat faded, they would sit beside the riverbanks and tell stories of the gods who once walked among them. The children would ask, "Will they ever walk here again?" And the elders, gazing at the stars, would answer softly, "They never left. They live in the silence between your heartbeats." Yet humankind, though grateful, still longed to reach upward. As they watched the sky, they saw in it the same mystery that had once shaped them. They began to raise temples, ziggurats of clay and fire, each layer built to bring them closer to the divine. The first rose in Eridu, a shimmering mountain of brick that caught the morning sun like polished amber. Smoke from incense curled from its summit, rising toward heaven, like the continuation of Atrahasis's altar. It was not ambition that drove them. It was reverence, the desire to remind the gods that Earth still remembered. Each brick was laid with prayer, each stair carved with care. The workers sang as they built, their voices echoing across the plain. "May the heavens look kindly upon the works of our hands." From above, Enki watched the cities forming, his eyes full of tenderness. "They have learned to shape beauty from dust," he said. Even the flood could not silence their desire to create. Beside him, Ninhursag smiled. "Creation lives within them," she said. "It is not disobedience, it is reflection. The clay remembers the touch that formed it." Enlil, still wary but gentler, now looked upon the towers and the people moving like rivers below. "If only they remember why they build," he murmured. "When creation forgets humility, it becomes vanity." Anu's voice rose like distant thunder softened by peace. "Then let the cities be both their challenge and their teacher. For even in their rising they must learn that no wall reaches heaven without a heart that kneels." And so the ziggurats stood, tall bridges of devotion between earth and sky. Priests climbed their spiraling steps to offer grain and oil, incense and wine. From the summit, they looked upon the vastness of creation and whispered blessings for the living below. These temples were not only houses of worship, but also schools of wisdom, where the people learned the movements of stars, the secrets of numbers, and the rhythm of seasons. They charted the paths of planets and named them after the gods: Nana for the moon, Utu for the sun, Inanna for the morning star. In doing so, they did not seek to control the heavens, they sought to understand them, to live in harmony with their order. The priests became keepers of both faith and knowledge, for to study the stars was to read the handwriting of the divine. At night, when the fires of the temples flickered across the plains, the cities glowed like constellations fallen to earth. Travelers approaching from afar would see their light shimmering on the horizon and whisper, "The gods have built again." Yet within that growing radiance, humanity also discovered its reflection, the capacity for both light and shadow. As the cities grew, so did desire. Kings rose declaring that the favor of the gods dwelled within their crowns. Wars flared brief and terrible as men fought not for survival, but for glory. Still, amid all the noise, one truth remained. Every victory, every tear, every stone laid upon another, carried the same unspoken prayer. May we be remembered. Enki wandered unseen among them, wearing the guise of a traveler. He entered the markets where potters shaped clay, and farmers traded grain. He saw laughter, pride, kindness, and folly, woven together like strands of a single thread. One evening, a child offered him a cup of water, smiling shyly. Enki took it, tasting its sweetness, and said, "This is how the world stays alive, not through strength, but through small mercies." He left before dawn, his footsteps vanishing into the sand. The people never knew who he was, but in that city, they would later tell a story of a stranger who drank water as if it were wine, and spoke words that made the air shimmer with peace. As centuries passed, more cities rose. Their ziggurats reached higher, their prayers grew louder. The winds carried hymns across the plains, and even the rivers seemed to hum with life. The gods, once distant, now felt the closeness of human devotion in every fragrance of burning myrrh and every song sung under starlight. But Enki knew that creation, like the tide, would one day recede and rise again. All things in the world followed this sacred rhythm: birth, growth, forgetting, remembrance. What mattered was not how high the city stood, but whether they could still look upward with wonder. And so, as night draped its velvet calm over the land, the rivers shone with reflected stars, and the towers of humankind became silhouettes against a sky that seemed to breathe with them. The wind carried the faintest sound, half human, half divine, the same melody sung since the dawn of time. If you listen tonight, perhaps you can still hear it: the murmur of water beneath stone, the hum of ancient prayers hidden in the heart of the wind. It is the song of beginnings, still flowing, still alive. So close your eyes now. Let the sound of rivers and distant echoes cradle you. Dream of cities not built from pride but from gratitude, where every stone remembers the touch of the gods, and every human heartbeat becomes a silent act of praise. For even as centuries pass and towers crumble, the earth still whispers to the heavens, "We remember you." The cities that rose from the rivers glowed like constellations upon the earth. The hum of prayers, the rhythm of trade, and the laughter of children wove together into a single living melody. Yet beneath this harmony another sound began to stir, a softer one, woven through the night winds and carried by the voice of women. It was a song that did not call for power or knowledge, but for love, renewal, and peace. The voice belonged to the goddess who had walked between stars and men since the dawn of creation. Her name was Inanna, the morning star, and her story would become the heartbeat of every soul that loved and lost beneath heaven's gaze. In the city of Uruk, where the towers touched the low clouds, and the air smelled of grain and honey, the people awoke each spring to celebrate the return of life. It was the season of Inanna, the goddess of love and fertility, whose radiance was said to draw blossoms from the earth and fire from the hearts of men. Her temple rose at the city's center, shimmering with copper and lapis lazuli, its gates carved with scenes of doves and palm trees, symbols of peace and rebirth. As dawn touched the sky, the priests lit lamps along the temple's terraces, and the fragrance of myrrh drifted into the streets. From every home came women dressed in white linen, carrying garlands of flowers, and men playing flutes that sounded like the breath of spring itself. They gathered before the great steps of the temple, waiting for the sacred moment when the goddess would be invoked through her priestess. Inanna's high priestess appeared at the altar, her eyes rimmed with gold dust, her voice soft but steady. Behind her stood Dumuzi, the shepherd king, beloved of the goddess, chosen by the gods to embody the balance between heaven and earth. Together, they would enact the sacred rite that kept the land fertile, the rivers faithful, and the people at peace. The ceremony began not with command, but with tenderness. The priestess sang of creation, of how love once bridged the sky, and the soil how Enki's waters met Ninhursag's earth to bring forth life. Her song flowed like a river, ancient and sweet. When heaven leaned toward earth, when rivers sought their course, love was born in silence, and the world learned to breathe. Dumuzi knelt before her, laying a sheaf of wheat at her feet. "O Inanna," he whispered, "you are the breath within the seed, the pulse within the rain. Without you, the fields would sleep forever." The priestess touched his head, her hands trembling slightly. "And you," she answered, "are the strength that carries life through storm and shadow. Without you, the seed would have no place to root." Together they rose, and the people bowed. For though they saw only a man and a woman, they knew the gods were present in them, the eternal dance of giver and receiver, heaven and earth, spirit and body. The ritual was not lust, but reverence, a recognition that life itself was sacred union. As they joined hands, the drums began a slow heartbeat rhythm that grew with the rising sun. The people sang their voices, merging into a wave that rolled through the city and out into the fields. Even the animals seemed to pause and listen. Somewhere in the distance, a dove cooed, and the wind stirred the tall grass like a sigh. From the heavens the Anunnaki watched, and for once, their gazes were not filled with judgment, but with peace. Enlil spoke softly. "They have found what even the gods long for, the union that gives rather than takes." Enki nodded. "It is the same power that shaped the world, now reborn in their hearts." As the day passed, the city of Uruk became an altar of joy. The people feasted upon bread, and dates, poured wine upon the ground as offering, and sang songs of gratitude to Inanna. Children ran through the streets, scattering petals, and elders raised their hands toward the sky. They knew that every harvest, every birth, every moment of tenderness was part of this eternal rhythm, the promise that life once given would always return. But behind the beauty of the festival lay a truth that no one could escape. Love to be divine must also descend into the dark. Inanna herself knew this well, for her story was not only of joy, but of descent. There would come a day when she would journey into the underworld to bring light to her sister's realm, to learn that even death has its part in the sacred cycle. Yet for now, the world was still in bloom, and her song filled every living thing with quiet ecstasy. As evening fell, the sky deepened into a pool of violet. The stars, her children, began to appear. The priestess and Dumuzi stood once more before the altar, hands clasped, faces turned toward the heavens. Together, they whispered the final words of the rite. As heaven is faithful to the earth, may love be faithful to life. Then silence, the kind that hums with presence, with meaning too vast for words. The people felt it settle over them like a gentle rain. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause, listening to the heartbeat of creation. And when the wind began to move again, it carried Inanna's voice through the city, soft as the brush of a wing. Do not forget, my children. The world is not built upon stone, but upon tenderness. Every seed you plant, every tear you shed, every touch that heals, these are my temples. The people knelt. Some wept, others smiled through tears. The flutes played again, but now their music was slower, reflective, as though the instruments themselves prayed. In the heavens, the gods smiled. Even Enlil, who once doubted, felt his heart stirred by the music below. Perhaps he said to Enki, "It is not obedience that keeps the world in balance, but love." Enki replied, "Love is the breath of all things. When it stops, the world will sleep. When it flows, the world awakens." And so it was that Uruk became the heart of a civilization not built merely on power, but on the song of Inanna. The song that taught the people that the divine could be found not in the thunder or the flame, but in the quiet touch of kindness, in the embrace that binds without owning, in the love that creates rather than consumes. As night deepened, the moon rose over the ziggurat, casting a pale glow over the city. The last of the songs faded into whispers, then into dreams. The people slept peacefully, believing that the goddess herself walked among them in the starlight. And perhaps she did. For even now, if you listen carefully beneath the hum of the modern world, you may still hear her Inanna, the voice of life itself singing through the wind, and the beating of your heart, reminding you that creation begins and ends not in power, but in love. So rest now, dear listener, under her silver gaze. Let her song cradle your thoughts and carry you into gentle dreams, where heaven and earth meet once more in perfect harmony. As the sacred songs of Inanna drifted into the silence of night, their echoes lingered in the air above Uruk like fragrant smoke. The people slept peacefully, hearts wrapped in warmth and gratitude, believing that the goddess's love would forever protect their cities. But time, ever patient and watchful, continued its quiet march. New generations rose, and the divine harmony between gods and mortals began once again to change. For from the north, a new wind carried with it a different kind of power, a power of ambition, of conquest, of destiny, written not in song, but in thunder. It was the rise of Babylon, and with it, the birth of a new god who would shake heaven itself. The dawn that broke over the plains of Mesopotamia that year did not bring peace, it brought awakening. Across the rivers and fields, the banners of Babylon lifted against the morning light, their gold and crimson edges flickering like tongues of flame. The people gathered in the courtyards of their growing city, whispering the name that had begun to spread from every temple, every marketplace, every heart. Marduk. He was the son of wisdom born of Enki's ancient line, yet his destiny reached beyond the quiet depths of his father's realm. Where Enki had whispered life into the rivers, Marduk roared like the storm that moves mountains. His symbol was the dragon serpent, his voice the sound of wind tearing through the heavens. Yet within his power burned the same light that had once glowed in the hands of the first creators, the will to bring order from chaos. Far away in the divine assembly, the Anunnaki watched the world below as Babylon rose. Enlil's eyes darkened with concern. "He gathers power too quickly," he said. "The world has known balance for an age. What comes now may break it." Enki, his gaze softer, replied, "Every age must bear a new guardian brother. Perhaps Marduk's flame is not destruction but transformation, or ambition disguised as purpose," Enlil murmured. But the voice of Anu, calm and distant, settled between them like a star over dark water. "Let the heavens watch and learn. The order of the cosmos is not kept by stillness but by motion. If Marduk rises, then perhaps we too will see ourselves anew." Down on earth, Babylon grew from a cluster of temples into a kingdom of towers. The air shimmered with heat, the sound of hammers and the chants of priests who recited the names of the gods. At the city's heart stood the Esagila, the house of Marduk, where the smoke of sacrifice rose like a second sun. Within its walls, the people read from new tablets that told an ancient truth, rewritten the story of how Marduk had faced Tiamat, the goddess of primordial chaos, and brought the world into order. They said the battle had shaken heaven itself. Tiamat, vast and terrible, rose from the abyss. Her body coiled like 1,000 storms. The gods trembled before her, their courage drowned in her roar. But Marduk, young and untested, stepped forward. "If the world must be remade," he said, "then let me bear its burden." He forged his weapons from wind and lightning, and his chariot blazed brighter than the morning star. The battle raged for 9 nights and 9 days. Tiamat's breath became tempest, her tail mountains. But Marduk's heart did not falter. With the net of the 4 winds, he trapped her, and with an arrow forged from starlight, he pierced her heart. When her body fell, he did not destroy it. He divided it gently. Half became the sky, the other half the sea. From her tears came the rivers, and from her sighs the clouds. Thus, chaos became creation, and silence became song once more. The priests recited this tale each spring during the festival of Akitu, when the king himself bowed before Marduk's statue and confessed his unworthiness. It was a ritual of renewal, a remembrance that even in power there must be humility. The people listened, moved not by fear but by awe. They saw in Marduk's victory not a god of vengeance but of courage, the one who faced the storm and turned it into peace. Yet among the older gods a quiet unease took root. Inanna watched from her temple in Uruk, the starlight in her eyes dimming. The songs once flowed freely, she whispered. Now they are forged into law." Enlil nodded. "The age of the heart yields to the age of command." But Enki smiled faintly, though sorrow hid behind his kindness. "And yet the order he brings keeps the rivers pure, and the cities safe. Perhaps this is simply another breath of creation, stronger, louder, but born of the same divine pulse." And so the world turned. Babylon became the crown of the earth, its ziggurat et Anunnaki reaching higher than any before it. Its top was said to brush the dwelling of the gods, and its shadow fell across the plains like the mark of destiny. From its summit, the priests gazed at the stars and saw them move in perfect harmony, a reflection, they believed, of Marduk's will. Still deep within his temple as night fell, and the torches burned low, the god of Babylon sat alone. He looked down upon the world he had ordered, and felt the faint ache that all creators share, the knowledge that perfection comes with distance, and distance breeds longing. He missed the sound of laughter carried by the rivers, the humble prayers whispered in secret. He remembered perhaps that he too had been born from water and kindness. In that stillness a voice drifted through the darkness, soft as the breath of spring. It was Inanna's, though she did not appear. "Great One," she said, "you have bound the heavens with law, but do not forget the heart. The stars may obey, but it is love that keeps them shining." Marduk closed his eyes, and for a moment the flames around him softened. "Then let both endure," he whispered. "Order and compassion, two halves of the same sky." Outside the night blossomed with quiet light. The river shimmered beneath the moon, carrying its eternal song through the sleeping city. Babylon rested, its walls gleaming, its people dreaming of glory, unaware that even their God dreamed with them not of conquest, but of peace that endures beyond power. And perhaps that is how creation survives, through the balance between the storm and the calm, between the sword and the tear, between the voice that commands and the heart that forgives. So as you drift into sleep, imagine that great city beneath the stars, the ziggurat rising like a mountain of light, the wind carrying faint hymns from the temples, the river whispering secrets older than time. For the story of Marduk is not only about victory, it is about finding harmony between might and mercy. Rest in that thought tonight, and let its calm settle over you. Like the hush after thunder, the moment when the world for a heartbeat remembers. It was born from both fire and love. The fires of Babylon burned bright through the ages, and the hymns to Marduk echoed far beyond the city's walls. Yet as centuries passed, the hands that once built temples began to turn their gaze not only to heaven but to the heavens themselves. Humanity, still guided by divine memory, sought to understand the rhythm that pulsed beyond the reach of their mortal eyes. What began as prayer became observation, and what was once worship evolved into wonder. In the quiet hours of night, when the wind stirred the lamps and the stars unveiled their secret paths, a new form of reverence was born, the sacred study of the skies. Night in Mesopotamia was unlike night anywhere else. The air was clear, the wind dry and tender, and the stars hung so close that one could almost feel their breath upon the skin. They shimmered not as distant fires, but as living eyes, patient and eternal, watching over the slow awakening of human thought. In that vast, quiet darkness, men and women began to ask questions not even the gods had expected. At first, they watched in silence. Shepherds counted the constellations as they tended their flocks, marking how each cluster of stars appeared and vanished with the seasons. The priests of Nana, god of the moon, traced the arc of its glow, recording the rhythm of its fullness and retreat. By the rivers of Ur and the towers of Babylon, they built small clay tables filled with marks, patterns of days, symbols of light, numbers shaped like prayer. But soon what began as devotion became understanding. The heavens were not random, they realized, but written with divine order. The stars moved, as if bound by a promise made long before the birth of the earth. The priests began to call them the Watchers, the silent Anunnaki of the sky, who never slept, who told the story of creation not with words, but with light. One of those watchers was an old priest named Iltani. He had served in the temple of Marduk since his youth, sweeping the marble floors and trimming the wicks of the sacred lamps. But when the sun set each evening, he would climb the high steps of the ziggurat and sit beneath the heavens until dawn. His robes shimmered faintly with dust, his hands trembling with both age and awe. To him, the stars were not distant. They were voices. He began to draw what he saw, pressing lines into soft clay. With a reed stylus, he marked where Venus rose before the dawn, where the moon cut through the path of the sun, and where strange wandering stars, what we now call planets, moved with willful grace through the constellations. The sky is a scripture, he whispered to his students. Each star is a word, and every orbit a verse in the poem of the divine. Others began to follow his path. In Nippur, scribes built great tables of observations that spanned lifetimes. They recorded eclipses, solstices, comets, each treated not as omen alone but as message. Over time, what had been worship turned gently into science, though in those days the two were one and the same. To understand the heavens was to listen to the heart of God. Enki from the depths of the sweet waters watched them with quiet pride. "See how they remember," he said. "They seek not power, but pattern. They study the rhythm of creation as we once sang it." Inanna's light shining from her place, as Venus glowed brighter at his words. "Perhaps they no longer need us as they once did," she said softly. "Perhaps they have learned to see the divine within themselves." And Enlil, his voice carried upon the wind, answered, "Then the heavens have succeeded. The children of clay have become mirrors of the stars." On earth, Iltani grew old, but his eyes never dimmed. Every evening he would whisper the same prayer before beginning his work. "Grant me the patience to see what repeats, and the wisdom to understand what does not." When he died, his disciples found upon his final tablet a message unlike any he had written before. "We are all made of the same dust that once dreamed of light." The tablet was placed in the temple archive, and from it, generations later, another priest discovered the principle of the great cycles, the understanding that time itself was circular, not a straight path from beginning to end. The flood, the covenant, the rise of cities, all were part of a rhythm that echoed even in the movement of the stars. Humanity had begun to perceive the cosmos not as chaos but as harmony, an eternal dance where even destruction served a purpose. At night, the great ziggurats became observatories. Their flat tops were no longer only altars for offerings, but platforms for stargazers. The hum of prayers mingled with the scratch of styluses, and the glow of oil lamps mixed with the first traces of astronomy. The priests began to notice that each star was tied to a god, each constellation to a story. When Jupiter burned bright, they said Marduk watched over the earth. When Venus shimmered low, they whispered that Inanna descended into the underworld to return with new light. The people no longer looked at the heavens with fear but with wonder. Even the humblest farmer could name a handful of constellations, and when the moon was full, lovers walked the riverbanks pointing upward and saying softly, "The gods are awake tonight." But as understanding grew, so did longing. Humanity realized that the stars, though beautiful, could not be reached. They were eternal, untouchable reflections of a truth just beyond the grasp of flesh. And so the prayers returned quieter, now more humble. "If we cannot touch the heavens," they whispered, "let them touch us." And the heavens did. For even as the stars spun in their ancient patterns, they sent down their light soft and unwavering upon every roof, every palm, every dream. That light became the bridge between divine and mortal, the final covenant written not in stone or rainbows, but in illumination itself. As the centuries passed, the priests of Babylon would inscribe their wisdom upon tablets, their records destined to be buried beneath time, waiting to be rediscovered by future hands. But the sky never forgot. It still carried the same message, the same rhythm, the same silent song. Everything that was still is. Everything that shines still remembers. So tonight, when you gaze upward into the dark, know that you are looking at the same stars that watched over Iltani, over Atrahasis, over the first dawn of creation. They are the eyes of the past, patient and kind, keeping vigil over every dream that has ever dared to rise. Let their light cradle you. Let it remind you that even when you sleep, the stars do not. They keep watch, gentle, eternal, never sleeping, so that you may rest beneath their ancient promise of peace. For many generations, the stars had guided humankind, their light, their silence, their steady rhythm across the black sea of night. But even the brightest constellations could not prevent what time always brings forgetting. Empires rose like fire and fell like ash. Temples once filled with songs of devotion began to crumble, their altars cold, their inscriptions buried beneath dust. The gods who had shaped the rivers, who once walked beside their creation, found themselves fading not in power, but in memory. The stars still shone, but fewer eyes looked up to greet them. Humanity's gaze had turned toward itself. The dawn that broke over Mesopotamia no longer gleamed upon golden ziggurats or freshly laid altars. The air smelled not of incense, but of clay and silence. The rivers flowed as they always had, but their banks no longer echoed with hymns. Where once stood cities devoted to the heavens, Eridu, Nippur, Uruk, now rose empty shells of stone. Their walls fractured, their gardens reclaimed by the wind. The gods had not vanished, but they slept. In the city of Ur, once the heart of the moon god's worship, only a handful of keepers remained. They lit small lamps each night and whispered prayers to the stars, uncertain if anyone still listened. Among them was a scribe named Amaru, who spent his days restoring broken tablets and tracing fading symbols with trembling hands. The library he guarded had become a tomb of language. The clay smelled of age, and the words inscribed upon it seemed to sigh when touched. Each night, Amaru would climb the ruined steps of the ziggurat and sit where priests once sang to Nana, the silver-faced god of the moon. The wind passed through the cracks in the stones, and he imagined it as the breath of a sleeping divinity. He would close his eyes and murmur, "Do you still dream of us?" The silence that followed was vast, yet sometimes when the wind shifted, it carried a faint hum, like the memory of distant music. Amaru would smile and whisper, "Then you are not gone. You are only resting." One evening, as twilight settled over the ruins, a storm gathered far to the west. The sky grew heavy with dust, and the horizon glowed the color of bronze. Amaru gathered his tablets to shelter them, but before he could retreat, the first drops of rain began to fall. They struck the stones softly, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. It was the first rain the city had seen in many seasons. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Enki, is that you?" Thunder rolled low and kind. The rain washed over the ziggurat, tracing rivulets through the ancient carvings. Faces of gods long forgotten. Anu Enlil Inanna seemed to shimmer for an instant, as though awakened by the touch of water. For a moment, the entire city seemed to breathe. The lamps flickered brighter, the air sang with quiet reverence, and Amaru felt an emotion he could not name, half sorrow, half joy. But as quickly as it came, the rain passed. The silence returned, and the gods slipped back into their sleep. Amaru descended the stairs, his robe heavy with water, and returned to his library. There, by the faint light of an oil lamp, he began to write not a prayer, but a memory. He wrote of how humanity had once walked beside the divine, how the rivers had been alive with purpose, and how the stars had been teachers rather than ornaments. He wrote not to preserve faith, but gratitude. If they never awaken, he wrote, let them at least know that we remember. Outside, the ruins glowed faintly beneath the moon. The broken pillars cast long shadows that stretched like fingers reaching for the past. Somewhere a fox cried a lonely, beautiful sound that carried across the sand. The city was not dead. It was dreaming. In the heavens, Enki stirred within his watery realm, his voice soft as the ripple of a tide reached Enlil, who lay among the clouds. "Do you hear it?" Enki asked. "One still remembers." Enlil sighed, his tone weary but touched with warmth. "It has been ages since their songs reached us. Yet even one voice can awaken memory. Perhaps this is how we live now," Enki said, "not as rulers or voices of thunder, but as whispers in the dust, waiting for hearts that still listen." And so, in that quiet age, the divine withdrew deeper into the stones and the soil. The gods became stories, and the stories became symbols. The temples turned to ruins, but their foundations remained strong, as if refusing to sink completely into oblivion. Every fragment of sculpture, every cracked tablet, every faded inscription carried within it a faint pulse, the echo of what once was sacred. Generations passed. The children of Amaru grew, and their children after them. They no longer spoke the old language, but in the evenings they still felt something stir within them when the wind moved through the ruins. The stones seemed to whisper not words but feelings, peace, awe, remembrance. And though they could no longer name the gods, they instinctively lifted their faces to the stars as their ancestors once had. The gods in their slumber heard this faint gesture and smiled within their dreams, for even forgotten, they were still loved. One night long after Amaru's death, a traveler passed through the abandoned city. He found shelter among the broken columns of the temple. As he slept, he dreamed of a great hall filled with light, where figures of gold and shadow stood watching him. One stepped forward, a woman with eyes like dawn. "We are not gone," she said. "We have become the memory that teaches you to wonder. When you look at beauty and feel your soul tremble, it is us. When you forgive, it is us. When you build again, it is us." When the traveler awoke, the sky was pale with morning. The city around him glowed in soft light, and for a moment it seemed alive again. He knelt and pressed his hand against the warm stone. "Then rest well," he whispered. "We will keep your dreams safe." He continued his journey, but before he left the valley, he looked back one last time. The wind rose, lifting a swirl of sand that shimmered like gold in the sun. And though the gods no longer walked the earth, their presence lingered in the quiet between footsteps, in the breath of the wind, in the heart that still dared to remember. So tonight, if you find yourself walking through ruins, do not think of them as empty. Listen, the stones still breathe. They carry the dreams of gods who sleep waiting, not for worship, but for wonder. And if you close your eyes and breathe deeply enough, you might feel it too. The pulse beneath the dust, ancient and alive, whispering softly, "We are still here." The gods slept within the stones, and the world moved forward carrying their memory in silence. Ages turned like the slow rhythm of the moon. The rivers shifted their paths, kingdoms rose and fell, and languages changed like the wind. Yet beneath the dust, beneath the ruins where prayers had once filled the air, something eternal continued to breathe. The divine had not vanished. It had transformed, flowing quietly into the hearts of humankind. And from those hearts, the first sparks of new understanding began to rise, glowing softly in the dark. The world had grown quieter. The old temples had long since become echoes, their walls worn smooth by time and sand. The priests were gone, their names forgotten, their sacred chants turned to dust. But one evening, far from the ruins of Ur and Babylon, a lone traveler walked through the desert, carrying a small oil lamp. Its flame flickered fragile against the breath of the night, yet it burned steadily, casting light upon his path. His name was Elior, a man of no lineage, no kingdom, no priesthood, only a heart that still wondered where the gods had gone. He had heard the stories from elders who spoke of a time when heaven touched the earth, when rivers carried voices, and the stars whispered of destiny. But he was born into a world of silence. No miracles came from the sky now, no thunder of divine speech. Still, something within him refused to believe the gods were gone. Perhaps he thought they had simply hidden themselves within the smallest things, light breath memory. One night after days of walking, he found himself among the broken columns of an ancient city half buried in sand. The moon hung low, pale as ash. The wind whispered through the ruins, stirring grains that glowed like embers in his lamplight. Elior placed the lamp upon a fallen altar and sat before it. Its flame reflected in his eyes, steady and golden. "If you are still here," he said softly, "show me not your power, but your peace." The wind sighed through the cracks in the stone. The silence that followed was deep enough to be sacred. Elior closed his eyes, letting the rhythm of his breath match the soft flicker of the flame. Slowly, he began to feel something, a warmth that did not come from the lamp, a presence that was neither above nor beyond him but within. It was as if the entire night exhaled through his soul. Then, faintly, a voice. Not thunder, not command, but a whisper made of memory. "We never left you. We became what you needed most, light in your hands." He opened his eyes. The flame in the lamp had grown brighter yet softer, as though it were listening. He reached out and felt no heat, only calm. Tears welled in his eyes. For the first time in his life, he understood the gods had not abandoned the world, they had given it back to those who once worshipped them. The divine spark now lived within human hearts. Elior sat until dawn, watching the light shift across the stones. When the first sunbeams touched the ruins, the flame in his lamp did not vanish. It transformed into morning. The wind that had once carried prayers now carried his breath, and for the first time he felt that every inhale was a kind of worship. He began to travel from village to village, not as a prophet or priest, but as a bearer of quiet wisdom. He carried the same lamp, its flame eternal, and told the people what he had learned. "The gods have not died," he said. "They have become the light that lives within each of us. When you build, when you forgive, when you love, these are your temples now." Some listened with tears, others with laughter, but all felt something stir inside them, a recognition older than language. Children would follow him through the streets, trying to touch the glow of his lamp. When their hands met its warmth, they giggled, not knowing that in that moment they too held a piece of the eternal fire. In the heavens, the ancient gods awoke, stirred by the echo of Elior's words. Enki spoke first, his voice like the sound of flowing water. "Do you see, brother?" The song continues. Enlil, once the storm, smiled faintly. "They no longer fear us. They carry us." Inanna's voice shimmered through the starlight. "Love has found its way home." And Anu, watching from the highest sky, whispered, "Perhaps this was always the plan, that creation would one day remember that it too is divine." On earth, Elior grew old, but the flame never dimmed. Each night he placed it beside him before he slept, and its glow bathed his face in peace. In his final moments, as the desert wind sighed around him, he whispered, "Not even the gods die. They only change." The flame flickered once, as if in farewell, and then passed into the air, disappearing yet remaining everywhere. Generations later, the story of the man with the eternal lamp became legend. Some said the flame was hidden in the heart of every newborn child. Others said it burned within acts of kindness or laughter, shared in sorrow, or the courage to forgive. Whatever name it took, the light endured. In time, philosophers replaced priests. Artists replaced prophets. Temples gave way to hearts that sought meaning not in sacrifice but in understanding. Humanity began to see that the sacred had never left, it had only changed form. The divine was now the spark of curiosity that led one to look at the stars, the compassion that healed, the forgiveness that set souls free. And when night fell upon the desert, travelers would still see small lights moving across the dunes, lamps carried by wanderers who had heard the old story and wanted to find the ruins where Elior once prayed. But those who reached them discovered something far greater than stone. They found silence, living, breathing silence so deep it seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the world. In that silence, if one listened closely, there was always a voice, not from the heavens but from within. The gods are not gone. You are their breath, their memory, their light. So when you lie down tonight, close your eyes and feel that same warmth rising from your chest. The gentle fire that has traveled through ages from divine hands to human hearts. It is older than the stars and softer than dawn. It does not demand, it does not burn, it only reminds. And as sleep folds around you, imagine yourself holding a small lamp beneath the endless sky. Its flame never wavers. It waits, as it always has, to light the way home. The lamp of Elior became a memory, passed from voice to voice, from heart to heart. Its flame, though unseen, continued to glow within those who dared to hope. The world changed again. Cities rose, fell, and were born anew. Faith took on new names, and yet beneath all the stories one truth endured. The divine had not vanished. It had moved quietly into every act of kindness, every question, every prayer uttered in solitude. The gods no longer spoke from the clouds, but through the hearts of men and women who still looked toward the stars and whispered, "We remember." Centuries drifted by like gentle tides. The great rivers of the first world grew shallow, and the temples that once mirrored the heavens now lay beneath layers of sand. But the human heart, restless, luminous, and searching, never forgot the light. Somewhere deep within it still carried the echo of creation, that first divine breath that shaped both gods and men. And so, in a world both older and newer than before, the flame began to stir again. In a small village near the edge of what was once Babylon, a young woman named Amara would sit each evening beside the ruins of an ancient wall. She worked as a potter, shaping earth into forms that caught the sun at dawn. Her hands, covered in clay, moved with a rhythm she did not fully understand. Sometimes when she molded the soft soil, she felt as though it were guiding her, as if something ancient, something kind was shaping her in return. One evening as twilight fell, and the horizon glowed with copper light, she noticed a shimmer upon the wall. The stone cracked and, faded by centuries, began to glow faintly, as though touched by an invisible flame. She blinked, thinking it a trick of the sun's last rays. But when she reached out her hand, warmth met her fingertips. It was gentle, alive. And then, from deep within the stone, she heard it a whisper. "Do not be afraid. The light has never left." Amara drew her hand back, heart pounding, but the warmth remained. The air around her seemed to breathe. The trees rustled without wind, and the birds fell silent, as though listening. Then the voice came again, not loud but clear, as intimate as her own heartbeat. "We have slept long enough. The world has remembered love. It is time." She fell to her knees. "Who are you?" she whispered. "We are what you call gods," the voice replied, "but we are not apart from you. We are the spark in your hands, the fire in your art, the compassion that wakes you in the night. Once you built temples of stone. Now you build them from kindness. That is where we dwell." Tears welled in Amara's eyes. "Then the stories were true," she said softly. "The divine still walks among us." "Not above you," said the voice. "Within you." The glow in the wall brightened, then spread outward, rippling through the ruins like golden veins. The entire field around her shimmered with light. Shapes began to form, faint outlines of figures walking through the air, made not of flesh, but of radiance. She recognized them, without ever having seen them. Anu, Enki, and Lil Inanna, the old gods of the world's first dawn. Yet they were changed. Their faces no longer held the weight of authority or judgment. They were serene, humble, almost human. Inanna stepped forward, her eyes soft as moonlight. "Daughter of clay," she said, "we have returned not to rule, but to remember. The world no longer needs thunder to hear our voice. It only needs silence." Amara bowed her head, her tears falling to the earth. "What must I do?" she asked. Inanna smiled. "Do what you already do. Shape beauty from the dust. Give light to what is broken. You are our continuation, our living temple. Every act of creation, every breath of compassion, builds the bridge between heaven and earth." And as she spoke, the other gods stepped forward, their light mingling until it became one single radiance. It filled the valley, touched the rivers, spread through the villages and cities beyond. People looked up from their work, startled, feeling a sudden warmth bloom within their chests. Old men in marketplaces paused and smiled for no reason. Children laughed without knowing why. Across the world, hearts that had grown weary began to feel light again. The flame had returned not to the skies, but to the soul of humankind. It did not blind or command. It simply reminded. Those who felt it began to see one another with gentler eyes. They spoke softer, listened longer, forgave more easily. The light did not erase pain, but it taught that love could still rise within it. That night, as Amara sat beside the glowing wall, the gods began to fade into the air, their light dissolving into the stars. Before they vanished completely, Enki's voice reached her one last time. "The circle is complete. What began in heaven now lives on earth. Guard it well, and remember every heart is a universe, every kindness a prayer." When morning came, the glow had disappeared, but the warmth remained. The stones no longer whispered, yet Amara could feel their silence filled with presence. She touched the clay beside her and smiled. The earth itself seemed alive under her fingers. She took it home and began to shape it, not as pottery this time, but as a lamp. She carved upon it a single word in the old script, light. When she finished, she placed it by her window and lit its small wick. The flame flickered gently, just as Elior's had centuries before. The wind moved through her home, brushing her face like a blessing. Somewhere in the distance, the first morning bird began to sing. And thus, the cycle renewed itself. The gods, once distant, had become the light within creation, and creation in turn had become the way humanity prayed. The stars above no longer needed temples below. They shone through every act of kindness, every moment of wonder, every hand that shaped the earth with love. As the day unfolded, Amara carried her lamp to the marketplace where others gathered around it, drawn not by its brightness, but by the peace it gave. They did not ask what it was or who had made it. They only stood together silently, feeling that same warmth grow within them. And somewhere beyond sight and sound, the gods smiled. For in that moment, heaven and earth were one again, not through thunder or fear, but through love's quiet endurance. The story that had begun in starlight now lived in the beating of every human heart. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine that gentle lamp glowing beside you. Its flame does not burn, it breathes. It waits. It reminds you that the divine has never been far away. It lives in you, in all who came before, and in all who will come after. Rest in that warmth, and let it guide you home to the eternal light that never fades.